Elijah has ascended into heaven via a whirlwind, and Elisha has taken up Elijah's mantle, right? And Elisha is slowly getting the hang of things, right? He's performed some miracles. And we're going to see the continuation of Elisha's progress starting in chapter 4. So let's get this started right here. Boom.
A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha,
"Your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord. And the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves."
What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house?
"Your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil."
This is a worse situation than with Elijah. At least I had some flour too.
Borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all those vessels and set aside the full ones.
So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. Now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said to her son,
"Bring me another vessel."
There is not
Unlimited
another vessel.
oil.
So the oil ceased. Then
Only
she
up
came
until
and
the
told
number
the
of
man of
vessels.
God, and he said,
Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest.
Now it happened one day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a notable woman, and she persuaded him to eat some food.
Dang, what's up with Elijah and Elisha and women and food? And miracles regarding the two.
Was, as often as he passed by, he would turn in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband,
Look now, I know that this is a holy man of God who passes by us regularly. Please, let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table and a chair and a lampstand. So it will be, whenever he comes to us, he can turn in there.
And it happened one day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room, and lay down there. Then he said to Gehazi, his servant,
Call this Shunammite woman.
When he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to him,
Say now to her, Look, you have been concerned for us with all this care. What can I do for you? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?
I dwell among my own people.
What then is to be done for her?
And Gehazi answered,
Actually, she has no son, and her husband is old.
Call her.
When he had called her, she stood in the doorway.
About this time next year, you shall embrace a son.
No, my lord. Man of God, do not lie to your maidservant.
But the woman conceived, and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had told her. And the child grew. Now it happened one day that he went out to his father, to the reapers, and he said to his father,
My head.
So he said to a servant,
Carry him to his mother.
When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then died. And she went out and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door upon him, and went out. Then she called to her husband.
So laid him on the upper room bed.
Send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come back.
Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath.
It is well.
Then she saddled a donkey and said to her servant,
So she had some faith that he might be able to do something.
Do not slacken the pace for me unless I tell you.
and so she departed and went to the man of God at Mount Carmel. So it was, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to his servant Gehazi,
Look, the Shunammite woman. Please, run now to meet her, and say to her, Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?
It is well.
Why did she say
Now,
that?
when she came to the man of God at the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of God said,
Let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress. And the Lord has hidden it from me, and has not told me.
Did I ask a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me?
Then he said to Gehazi,
Get yourself ready, and take my staff in your hand, and be on your way. If you meet anyone, do not greet him. And if anyone greets you, do not answer him. But lay my staff on the face of the child.
As the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you.
So he arose and followed her. Now Gehazi went on ahead of them, and laid the staff on the face of the child.
But you see how subtle they speak. And this goes for not just the Bible, but also for a lot of like these olden timey type of anything, right? Like even if you see in like medieval fantasy movies, like any period pieces where they speak in a much more subtle way. Like here it says, Did I ask a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? Right? So you're bringing attention to the son, and she's bringing attention to the fact that she didn't ask for the son, right? And don't deceive me, right? She said, don't deceive me initially because you're lying. Don't lie, right? You're saying I'm going to have a son, but don't lie because I don't want to be disappointed if I don't have a son. So you're bringing that to attention. And she does, in fact, have a son. So why do not deceive me? Are you going to take the son away from me? Right? So she's bringing light to the idea that her son may be absent in some way. Right? Did I ask for a son, my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? So there's something to do with an absence of the son, and he knows that she has a son. So something happened to the son that's making him not there anymore. So you can draw the conclusion that he passed away. And this is all like, so he can draw that conclusion without her having to outright say that her son passed away. I just find it interesting the way they communicated that message. It's like a much more subdued, not direct, like explicit way of speaking. Like I have another channel called Film Quest, and I did a review on the last House of the Dragon episode, and there's a situation that happened in that episode, and the way the hand of the king spoke to the king, he was like dancing around the issue and saying what he wanted to say, but in a much more subtle way than we would have expressed it today, but still ended up getting his message across. So I don't know, I just find that interesting.
I went on ahead of them, and laid the staff on the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Therefore he went back to meet him, and told him,
The child is not awakened.
When Elisha came into the house, there was the child, lying dead on his bed. He went in, therefore,
That's sad.
shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. And he went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. And he stretched himself out on the child. And the flesh of the child became warm. He returned and walked back and forth in the house, and again went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi.
Call the Shunammite woman.
So he called her.
Pick up your son.
So she went in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. Then she picked up her son.
Elijah did a
and
similar
went
thing,
out.
stretched himself out.
And Elisha returned to Gilgal. And there was a famine in the land. Now the sons of the prophets were sitting
This is a
before
lot
him,
like Elijah's
and he
story.
said to his servant,
Put on the large pot and boil stew for the sons of the prophets.
So one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered from it a lapful of wild gourds, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though they did not know what they were. Then they served it to the men to eat. Now it happened, as they were eating the
Wait,
stew,
what was in the pot?
wild gourds
Wild. Where? Wild gourds.
and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though
Why
they
death
did
in
not
the
know
pot?
what they were. Then they served it to the men to eat. Now it happened, as they were eating the stew, that they cried out and said,
Man of God, there is death in the pot.
Like it's
and
gross,
they could not
sour,
eat it.
Then bring some flour.
like probably bitter gourd or something.
And he put it into the pot,
Serve it to the people that they may eat.
and there was nothing harmful in the pot.
Let's see what this Bible's got. It's probably just some bitter type gourd or 2 Kings 4:40. The wild gourds were poisonous, death in the pot. The reaction of the hungry men was immediate and frightening. The flour had no magical property, of course. Elisha's faith in the living God effected the miraculous cure. Oh, okay.
Then a man came from Baal Shalisha, and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of
Can you
barley bread
taste
and
poison?
newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said,
Give it to the people that they may eat.
but his servant said,
What? Shall I set this before 100 men?
Give it to the people that they may eat. For thus says the Lord, they shall eat and have some left over.
So
Just
he
like
set it before them,
The
and
5
they
loaves of
ate,
bread and 2 fish.
and had some left over, according to the word of the Lord.
Like, think about that. The Jews are reading the story of Elisha and shocked that he right, what is, and brought a man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley bread and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And these 20 loaves, and it's like impossible to feed 100 people with that much food. And they're probably, the Jews at the time of Jesus were reading the story and being like, wow, look at this miracle. And then Jesus comes along and feeds 5,000. 5,000 men, not counting the women and children, with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. That's, imagine their reaction. They thought this was great.
Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper, and the Syrians had gone out on raids.
Okay, a mighty man of valor, but a leper. So either he became a mighty man of valor prior to being a leper, and then he's no longer a mighty man of valor anymore, or can you have leprosy and still be physical? Like, or does it make you weak? I don't know all the like whenever you see leprosy in a movie or something, they're like frail, boils all over their body, digits falling off. and they can't do much. Even if it wasn't contagious, right? They can't do much. So I'm curious about this.
And had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress,
"If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy."
And Naaman went in and told his master.
"Thus and thus," said the girl who is from the land of Israel.
Then the king of Syria said,
"Go now. I will send a letter to the king of Israel."
So
his
he
master is
departed.
the king. I was going to ask, who is this? Naaman is the commander of the army. Who's his master? Who's the king?
With him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said,
"Now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy."
And it happened, when the king of Israel read the letter, that he tore his clothes and said,
"Am I God to kill and make alive, that this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? Therefore please consider, and see how he seeks a quarrel with me."
So it was, when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king.
Why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel.
Then Naaman went with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a
Who's the king of
messenger to
Israel
him.
at this point?
Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean.
But Naaman became furious.
King of Israel. Let's see if there is something here. The king of Syria, Aram. It didn't say here. Yeah, it's not saying who the king of Israel was. I mean, let's look in my Bible. Who is the last king of Israel that we saw? Jehoshaphat was king of Judah, and Jehoshaphat's son, what was his son's name? Jehoshaphat, I forgot, I don't know how to pronounce it, spell it. Son. Jehoram, right? There was a Jehoram, king of Israel and king of Judah. So was it Jehoram? I don't know. Let me know if you guys know. If you guys know who the king of Israel was at the time of Naaman's reign of Syria. Let me know down in the comment section. That's interesting.
Furious, and went away.
Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. Are not the Abana?
Oh wait, my Bible has something here. We have Okay, let's go. We have Ammon. Does it have the entirety? Or did I pause it for no reason? This is Judah. Where's Jehoshaphat? Jehoshaphat, Jehoram. Right? Okay. But we need to know who is... So we have the kings of Judah and Israel here, the timeline going in my Bible right here. Ahaziah, we saw. And Ahaziah, right? We saw that after Jehoram. And Ahaziah, did he pass away already? Elijah went to heaven. Ahaziah reigns in Israel. Okay, so he was the last king that we saw reigning in Israel. And so maybe it was this was during Ahaziah's reign. I don't know because I don't have the Syrian king timeline to but we can look it up. Ahaziah reigned in Judah and Israel. (840). Wait, there's no year. No, I'm guessing that would have to be the year 841 BC. It's not clear the way it's the way the yearing is marked. No. That has to be it. 841 BC, Ahaziah. Okay. So now this is king... Who's the king of Syria here? Naaman. King of Syria. Did it say the name of the king of Syria? I don't think it did, right?
But one thing...
Let's look it up. Name. Oh, wait. It said here, right? King of Syria. Or Aram. Aram means king. Or, no, Aram is Syria. Who is the name of the king? So we have, let me just make a new tab here. Naaman, king of Syria. Who is the king of Syria? Who is the king of Syria? Or what year were Naaman alive? Do we have a year in this article here? Nope. Maybe Wikipedia can guesstimate. Nope. Wrong guy. Yeah, so I mean, basically what we need to find out is when Naaman was alive, or when the king of Syria was alive. And this mic. Because we know, well, at least according to my Bible, we have Ahaziah ruling in 841. We have Athaliah ruling in 841 to 835. And then we have Joash, the boy king, from 835 to 796 BC. So anywhere we gotta. I mean, if you guys know, if you guys can find out when Naaman was alive, or when this king of Syria was, and when he was alive, we can figure that out. we can figure who the king of Israel was at this time.
Call on the name of the Lord his God, and wave his hand over the place.
A messenger to Darius, and went away.
Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand.
Naaman became furious. The king of Israel had torn his clothes.
Please let him come to me.
Naaman went with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him.
Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean.
But Naaman became furious and went away.
Indeed, I said to myself.
Yeah, he came all this way with all this money, and the guy didn't even come out to see him. And he's a commander of the armies, right? He's used to being treated properly, being treated well. And this guy, Elisha, is probably living in some, not a fancy house. So he's probably expecting this guy should be grateful for getting a client like me,
He will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand
He
over
thinks
the
he's
place
above Elisha,
and heal
probably.
the leprosy. Are not the Abana and the far part of the rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?
So he turned and went away in a rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him.
My father.
Yeah, what have you got to lose?
The
Just
prophet
try
had
it.
told you to do something great. Would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, wash and be clean?
So he went down and dipped 7 times
That's
in the
a
Jordan,
very good way of looking at
according to the
things.
saying of the man of God.
Right? He would if Elisha had said, "Go and slay 200 men and bring their foreskins like David," he would go do that. But because the task is comparable to the reward. But this, go wash in some dirty river and you'll be cleansed of your leprosy. It's like you're joking me, right? I don't even have time for this.
And his flesh was restored, like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his aides, and came and stood before him.
Indeed. Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now therefore, please take a gift from your servant.
As the Lord lives, before whom I stand, I will receive nothing.
And he urged him to take it, but he refused.
Then, if not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth. For your servant will no longer offer either burnt offering or sacrifice to other gods, but to the Lord. Yet in this thing may the Lord pardon your servant. When my master goes into the temple of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, when I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord please pardon your servant in this thing.
Go.
So he's calling himself your servant. Yet in this thing may the Lord pardon your servant. When my master goes into the temple of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the temple of Rimmon. When I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord please pardon your servant in this thing. So he's saying that he has to continue these pagan practices and rituals when he goes home, because his master is the king. And if he doesn't, he'll probably be killed or lose his position or something like that. And so he's asking for pardon beforehand. But what does this mean? Be given 2 mule loads of earth, right? Because does he want some part of Israel with him when he goes? Maybe. Because he thinks that God is the God of Israel. And so he wants some Israel with him.
In peace.
So he departed from him a short distance. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said,
Look, my master has spared Naaman this Syrian.
while not receiving from his hands what he brought. But as the Lord lives, I will run after him and take something from him.
Come on, Gehazi.
So Gehazi pursued Naaman. When Naaman saw him running after him, he got down from the chariot to meet him.
Is all well?
All is well. My master has sent me, saying, Indeed, just now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please, give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments.
Please, take 2 talents.
And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants. And they carried them on ahead of him. When he came to the citadel, he took them from their hand, and stored them away in the house. Then he let the men go, and they departed. Now he went in and stood before his master. Elisha said to him,
Where did you go, Gehazi?
Your servant did not go anywhere.
Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to receive money and to receive clothing, olive groves and vineyards, sheep and oxen, male and female servants? Therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants.
Oh my gosh. Forever?
And he went out from his presence leprous, as white as snow.
Holy. Well, that sucks, Gehazi. Well, that's it for today. We just finished chapter 5. Tomorrow we'll jump into chapter 6. Oh, I always like this story. The floating axe head. I've always found that interesting. So if you guys enjoyed today's reading, check back tomorrow for chapter 6. And I'll see you guys then, all right? Hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.